Before we begin, please note that the information provided in this video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical or psychological advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental health condition. You ever have one of those days? The kind of day where the universe just seems to have it out for you. You wake up 5 minutes before your alarm, but you still feel exhausted. You spill coffee on the one clean shirt you have left. The commute is a nightmare, a sea of red taillights stretching into the horizon. You finally get to work already defeated, only to find an avalanche of emails and a last-minute project with an impossible deadline. And with every new frustration you can feel it, that tight, buzzing pressure building behind your eyes. You feel yourself getting closer and closer to a breaking point, where one more tiny thing, one more person cutting you off in traffic, one more passive-aggressive email, is going to make you completely unravel. We've all been there. That feeling of being overwhelmed, of being stretched so thin that you're transparent. In our hyper-connected, high-pressure world, it's become the default setting for millions of Americans. We're told to just tough it out, to grind harder, to power through. We're told that strength means being an unbreachable fortress, a solid oak tree that never bends. But that's a lie. And it's a lie that is making us weaker. The truth is, the oak tree is the first to snap in a hurricane. The real secret to unbreakable, enduring strength isn't about being rigid and unmoving. It's about being like a willow tree, rooted strong, but flexible enough to bend with the storm and not break. That flexibility, that ability to bend, to adapt, and to bounce back from adversity, is called mental resilience. And it's not something you're born with. It's a skill. It's a muscle. And over the course of this series, I'm going to give you a complete workout plan to build it. This isn't about empty platitudes or just thinking positive. This is a practical, no-nonsense guide to building your own psychological immune system. We're going to deconstruct what it actually means to be resilient and give you actionable tools, mental models, and strategies that you can start using today to handle stress, overcome setbacks, and turn life's inevitable challenges into fuel for your own growth. By the end of this, you won't just understand resilience. You'll know how to build it from the ground up. You'll learn how to face that horrible, coffee-spilling, traffic-jammed, deadline-crushing day. And instead of feeling that familiar panic, you'll feel a quiet sense of control. So where do we start? We start with the single most important, most foundational principle of all human resilience. And to understand it, we have to go to one of the darkest places on Earth. A prisoner of war camp in North Vietnam during the height of the war. The camp was nicknamed the Hanoi Hilton. It was a place of unimaginable suffering. American soldiers, mostly pilots shot down over enemy territory, were held there for years on end. They faced routine torture, starvation, disease, and complete isolation. Their captors had one goal: to break them physically, mentally, and spiritually. Many men did break, but some didn't. Some endured for 5, 6, 7, even 8 years and came home with their honor and their minds intact. One of those men was an admiral named James Stockdale. After he was released, people were fascinated by him. They wanted to know his secret. How did he survive when so many others didn't? What was the psychological dividing line between those who made it out and those who perished? His answer is one of the most profound and counterintuitive lessons on survival ever recorded. When asked who didn't make it out of the camps, Stockdale's reply was immediate and shocking. He said, "Oh, that's easy. The optimists." The optimists? How could that be? Weren't they the ones with the positive attitude, the ones who should have had the most hope? Stockdale explained. The optimists were the ones who would say, "We're going to be out by Christmas." And Christmas would come and Christmas would go. Then they'd say, "We're going to be out by Easter." And Easter would come and Easter would go. And then Thanksgiving, and then it would be Christmas again. And they died of a broken heart. They died because their hope was built on a specific timeline, a specific outcome that was completely out of their control. When reality didn't meet their optimistic expectations, they were shattered. Their hope was brittle. So what did Stockdale and the other survivors do differently? They embraced a powerful psychological duality that has since become known as the Stockdale paradox. Here it is in his own words: "You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be." Let's break that down because it is the bedrock of everything we're going to build. It's two sides of the same coin. On one side you have unwavering, absolute faith. Not hope but faith. a deep internal conviction that you will get through this, that you will prevail, that in the end, your story does not end in defeat. This is non-negotiable. But on the other side of that coin, you have a ruthless, unflinching commitment to facing reality as it is, not as you wish it were. You have to look the ugly truth right in the eye. For Stockdale, that meant acknowledging, I am in a torture camp. I may not be out by Christmas. I may not be out for 5 more years. The situation today is dire, and it's painful, and it is not going to magically resolve itself tomorrow. This is the fundamental balance of resilience. It's the fusion of sober realism with die-hard faith. The optimists failed because they only had the faith part, and it was a fragile timeline-based faith. The pessimists failed because they only had the brutal reality part, and they drowned in their own despair. The survivors were the ones who could hold both ideas in their head at the same time. They could look at the grimness of their daily reality and say, yes, this is my situation now, while simultaneously holding on to the core belief, but I will get out of here, and I will turn this experience into the defining event of my life. Now you might be thinking, that's a great story, but I'm not a prisoner of war. You're right, but the Stockdale paradox applies to every single struggle we face. Think about it. Lost your job? The optimist says, oh, I'll have a new one in 2 weeks, and is crushed when a month goes by with no offers. The realist who survives and thrives says, okay, this is a tough job market. This could take months. I need to budget carefully and prepare for a long search. This is going to be hard. But I am talented, I am capable, and I will eventually find a new and better position. Going through a painful breakup? The paradox isn't about saying, I'll be over it by next weekend. It's about saying, this hurts more than anything I've ever felt. It is going to take a long time to heal, and there will be good days and bad days. But I will heal, and I will be whole again on the other side of this. Facing a scary health diagnosis? It's the ability to confront the brutal facts of the treatment, the side effects, the statistics, while never, ever losing faith in your ability to fight and prevail in the end. This is the first skill. This is ground zero for building resilience. It is the mental discipline to stare into the abyss of your current reality without flinching, while holding a blazing torch of faith that you will find your way to the other side. You don't ignore the darkness. You acknowledge it, you respect it, and you navigate it, all while keeping your eyes fixed on the light you know is waiting for you at the end of the tunnel. So, the critical question becomes how? How do we actually do that on a practical level? How do you stare at the brutal facts of your life without letting them consume you with fear or despair? How do you separate what is happening to you from what is happening within you? That separation is the key to everything, and mastering it requires our next core principle of resilience. A mental tool so powerful it was used by Roman emperors to build empires, and is used today by elite athletes and CEOs to turn the worst obstacles into their greatest advantages. This tool is called the dichotomy of control, and it's not just a mindset, it's an operating system for reality. Picture this. It's the year 172 AD. You're not in a comfortable office or a warm home. You're knee-deep in mud on the northern frontier of the Roman Empire, somewhere along the Danube River. The air is so cold it feels like tiny needles on your skin. You are Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, and you are miserable. Your legions are fighting a brutal, endless war against Germanic tribes. A plague has wiped out millions back home, gutting your army and your economy. Your most trusted general just betrayed you, attempting to usurp your throne. Your own body is failing, racked with chronic pain. Everything it seems is going wrong. This is the kind of pressure that would break anyone. It's a storm of chaos, loss, and fear. Yet, in his cold, damp tent, by the light of a flickering oil lamp, Marcus Aurelius didn't write letters of despair. He didn't draft plans of frantic revenge. He wrote to himself. He picked up his journal and wrote down principles to guide his own mind. And the central recurring theme, the bedrock of his sanity and his strength, was this incredibly simple idea. Some things are up to us and some things are not. That's it. That's the secret. He relentlessly, almost obsessively, sorted the world into 2 distinct categories: the things he could control and the things he could not. The weather? He couldn't control it. The plague? He couldn't wave a magic wand and make it disappear. The fact that his general betrayed him? That had already happened. It was in the past, and therefore he couldn't control it. What other people thought of him, the brutal tactics of his enemies, his own physical pain, all outside of his direct control. So what was left? What could the most powerful man in the world actually control? His thoughts, his judgments, his actions. his response to the cold, his response to the betrayal, his response to the pain. He realized his power wasn't in commanding the world to bend to his will, but in commanding his own mind to be unconquered by the world. This is the dichotomy of control. Think of it like two circles. In the very center, you have a small circle. This is your circle of control. Inside this circle are your choices, your effort, your attitude, your words, your actions. This is your kingdom. You are the absolute sovereign here. But surrounding that small circle is a much, much larger one. This is the circle of no control. This circle contains, well, almost everything else. The economy, the traffic on your commute, the weather on your wedding day, what your boss thinks of your new idea, whether that person you like texts you back, the past, the future, the opinions, actions, and feelings of other people. Now, where do most of us spend our time, our energy, our focus? We live in the outer circle. We spend our days furious about the traffic we can't change. We lose sleep replaying a conversation from yesterday which we can't alter. We get consumed with anxiety about what someone else might be thinking, which we will never truly know. We are essentially throwing our precious, finite energy into a black hole. It's like trying to steer a hurricane by yelling at the clouds. It's not just ineffective, it's exhausting. It's the very definition of powerlessness. The resilient mind, the stoic mind, does the opposite. It ruthlessly ignores the outer circle. It doesn't mean you don't acknowledge it. You see the hurricane. You just don't waste a single ounce of energy trying to command it. Instead, you pour 100% of your focus, your creativity, and your power into that small inner circle. The one place where you can actually make a difference. Let's make this real. You've been working on a massive project for weeks. You've poured your heart and soul into it. You present it to your leadership team, and your boss's boss decides to kill the project. Just like that. All your work gone. The typical reaction is a spiral of negative emotion. Anger. How could they? They don't see the value. Frustration. All that time wasted. Fear. Does this mean my job is in jeopardy? All of these feelings are focused on things in the outer circle. You can't control your boss's decision. You can't go back in time and get your hours back. You can't control the company's strategic priorities. The resilient response starts with a pause. You take a breath. And you ask the question, what, in this situation, is actually in my circle of control? The decision to kill the project? No. The time already spent? No. Your boss's opinion? No. Okay, so what is in your circle? How you react in this meeting is in your circle. You can choose to be professional and constructive, or bitter and argumentative. The effort you put into documenting what you learned from the project is in your circle. The way you communicate this news to your team is in your circle. The choice to update your resume and see what other opportunities are out there is in your circle. The decision to go to your boss, not to complain but to ask, I understand the decision. What's the most important thing I can focus on now to help the team succeed? That is 100% in your circle. Do you see the shift? It's a pivot from being a victim of circumstance to being an architect of your response. You stop being a leaf blown about by the wind and you become the rudder of your own ship, steering through the storm. This isn't about pretending you're not disappointed. The Stoics weren't emotionless robots. They were realists. You acknowledge the disappointment. That's a judgment, which is in your control. But you don't let it dictate your actions. You accept the reality of the situation, the things you cannot change, and then you dedicate your entire force of will to the things you can. Think of an elite athlete, a Super Bowl winning quarterback. It's the final 2 minutes. His team is down by 5 points. It's pouring rain. The crowd is deafeningly loud. A 300-pound lineman just slammed him into the turf. What does he control? Not the rain. Not the crowd. Not the score on the board. Not the hit he just took. If he focuses on any of that, he's already lost. He controls his breathing. He controls his focus. He controls the play he calls in the huddle. He controls the read he makes of the defense. He controls the precise arc of the ball as it leaves his hand. He shrinks the entire chaotic universe down to the few square feet of turf he stands on and the few critical actions he is about to take. That is mental resilience in action. He has mastered the art of focusing only on what is up to him. This practice, done consistently, is life-altering. It's a form of mental decluttering. Every time you feel that surge of anxiety, anger, or frustration, you can use it as a trigger, a mental alarm bell. Pause and ask the question, is the thing I'm upset about inside my circle or outside? If it's outside, you consciously practice letting it go. You acknowledge you can't control it, and you redirect your energy. If it's inside, you focus on it with absolute clarity and purpose. This is how you turn powerlessness into power. It's how you remain calm and effective in a crisis. It's not about changing the world around you. It's about mastering the world within you, so that nothing outside of you can ever truly break you. You define your own peace, your own success, not by the absence of problems, but by your skillful response to them. But simply sorting what you can and cannot control is only the first step. It clears the battlefield. The next step is to change how you see the battle itself. What do you do when the thing you can't control isn't just a minor annoyance like traffic, but a massive, unmovable obstacle standing directly in your path? What if that obstacle, that very thing you wish wasn't there, was actually the greatest gift you could ever receive? The Stoics believe that within every obstacle lies a hidden opportunity, a way forward not around it but through it. This philosophy isn't about positive thinking. It's not about pretending a broken leg is a good thing. It's about accepting the reality of the broken leg and then asking, okay, now what? It's about looking at the pieces on the floor and seeing not just a mess but raw material. In Japan, there is an ancient art form called kintsugi. When a treasured piece of pottery, a bowl, a vase, a cup, is broken, they don't throw it away. They don't try to glue it back together to hide the cracks. Instead, they meticulously reassemble the broken pieces using a special lacquer mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum. The result is breathtaking. The lines of breakage, once a symbol of damage, are now transformed into shimmering veins of gold. The object isn't just repaired, it's reborn. It is considered more beautiful, more valuable, and more unique because it was broken. The scars are not something to be hidden. The scars are the story. The scars are the art. This is the perfect metaphor for mental resilience. Life will break you. It will chip away at you. You will face setbacks, failures, and heartbreaks that shatter your sense of self. That is not a possibility. It is a guarantee. The question is not if you will break, but what you will do with the pieces. Will you discard them? Will you try to hide the cracks and pretend they never happened? Or will you practice a kind of mental kintsugi? Will you see those fractures not as flaws, but as opportunities to rebuild yourself with gold? This isn't just a beautiful idea. It is a practical psychological tool. It's a fundamental reframing of your relationship with adversity. Most of us are conditioned to react to an obstacle with a single destructive question. Why me? This question is a trap. It's a dead end. It leads to bitterness, resentment, and a feeling of powerlessness. It casts you as the victim in your own story. A resilient mind learns to ask a different set of questions. Powerful questions. Questions like, what can this teach me? What part of me is this forcing to grow? What opportunity is hiding inside this problem that I couldn't see before? Notice the shift. Why me? Is passive. It looks backward at the cause. The other questions are active. They look forward toward the response. This is the absolute core of turning obstacles into opportunities. You shift your focus from what happened to you to what you can do with what happened. You take back your power. Let's make this real. Imagine you just got laid off from a job you've had for 10 years. The initial shock is brutal. The fear is real. The why me question is screaming in your head. You feel like a piece of pottery smashed on the floor. And you must allow yourself to feel that. Acknowledge the pain. This is a critical first step. Resilience isn't about emotional suppression. It's about emotional processing. So you feel the anger, the fear, the injustice. But then you pick up the first piece. You ask the new questions. What can this teach me? Well, maybe it teaches you that you were too comfortable, that you relied too much on one source of income, that you stopped learning new skills because you felt secure. Ouch, that's a painful lesson, but it's a valuable one. Then you ask, what opportunity is hiding here? The obstacle, the job loss, is forcing you to look at a blank canvas. Maybe this is the chance to finally start that side business you've been dreaming about for years. Maybe it's the push you needed to go back to school and pivot to a career you're actually passionate about. Maybe it's simply the opportunity to build a much stronger, more diversified skill set, so you're never this vulnerable again. You see what's happening? You're not trying to glue the old job back together. You're taking the pieces of your professional life, and you're starting to mend them with the gold of new skills, new ventures, and new perspectives. The layoff, the very thing that broke you, becomes the catalyst for building a stronger, more anti-fragile career. Let's take another one. A painful, gut-wrenching breakup. The end of a long-term relationship. Feels like a part of you has been ripped away. The why me turns into "what's wrong with me?" It's a spiral of self-doubt and loneliness. Again, you honor the grief. You let yourself feel the heartbreak. It's real. But then you begin the kintsugi. What can this teach me? It can teach you about your own patterns in relationships, about the red flags you ignored, about your own needs that you weren't communicating. It can teach you what you truly value in a partner and what you will no longer tolerate. This isn't about blaming them or yourself. It's about extracting wisdom from the pain. What opportunity is hiding here? The opportunity to rediscover who you are outside of that relationship, to reconnect with friends you drifted from, to pour energy into your hobbies, your health, your purpose. The opportunity to build a life so full and so vibrant on your own that your next relationship will be a wonderful addition, not a desperate necessity. The heartbreak, the crack in your emotional foundation, becomes the very event that allows you to rebuild that foundation stronger, more self-aware, and more whole than you were before. You fill the crack with the gold of self-love and self-discovery. This mindset applies to everything. A failed business isn't a life sentence of failure. It's a masterclass in entrepreneurship. You just paid for an education in what doesn't work. The next venture is built upon that invaluable knowledge. A chronic health diagnosis isn't just a burden. It can be a profound opportunity to reevaluate every aspect of your life. Your diet, your stress, your relationships, your appreciation for every single good day. The obstacle is the way. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic thinkers, wrote in his private journal, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was saying the same thing nearly 2,000 years ago. He understood that a fire doesn't get weaker when the wind blows on it. A strong fire grows larger, consuming the very wind that tries to extinguish it. Your challenges, your obstacles, your heartbreaks, that is the wind. Your job is to be the fire. Psychologists now have a modern term for this ancient wisdom: post-traumatic growth. It's a fascinating field of study. Researchers have found that while some people develop PTSD after a traumatic event, a significant number of people experience the opposite. After surviving immense hardship, combat, loss, illness, they don't just return to their baseline level of happiness. They bounce forward. They report a greater appreciation for life, stronger relationships, a deeper sense of personal strength, and a more profound sense of purpose. They didn't just repair the broken pottery, they rebuilt it with gold, and in doing so, created a masterpiece of a life they never would have had otherwise. The trauma became their transformation. This is the promise of resilience. It's the understanding that the universe isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Every obstacle is a training session. Every failure is a lesson. Every heartbreak is a clarification. Each one is a chance to gather the pieces and ask yourself, where does the gold go? But knowing this is one thing. Putting it into practice when you're in the thick of it, when the pain is fresh and the future looks bleak, is another challenge entirely. It requires more than just a shift in perception. It requires a specific set of mental tools, a kind of psychological first aid kit you can deploy in moments of crisis. It requires you to understand the architecture of your own mind and how to become the master of your own emotional responses, rather than their slave. And the first, most critical tool in that kit is learning to control the one thing you will always have power over, no matter how chaotic the world gets. Your breath. That's it. It's not some grand, mystical secret. The one thing you have absolute, undeniable control over, from the moment you're born to the second you die, is your breath. And through your breath, you gain control over the second thing, your focus, where you choose to place your attention. This is the master key to your internal world. Because whatever you focus on expands. Whatever you give your attention to, you give your power to. Imagine your mind is a vast, dark room. It contains everything. Your greatest triumphs and your most humiliating failures. Your deepest fears and your most ambitious dreams. Your anxieties, your hopes, your memories, your skills. It's all in there. And in your hand you hold a single powerful spotlight. That spotlight is your conscious attention. Most of us, without ever realizing it, spend our lives frantically pointing this spotlight at all the wrong things. A mistake we made last week? We shine the spotlight right on it, examining it from every angle, replaying it in slow motion, bathing the entire room in the light of our failure. An anxious thought about the future? We zoom in on it, making it a giant, terrifying monster on the wall, letting its shadow swallow everything else. The hurtful comment someone made? We put it on a pedestal center stage and illuminate it until it's the only thing we can see. and we wonder why we feel anxious, defeated, and stuck. We are actively, though unconsciously, choosing to light up the parts of our mind that hurt us. Resilience isn't about getting rid of the scary things in the dark room. The failures and fears will always be there. Resilience is the learned skill of consciously grabbing the handle of that spotlight and pointing it somewhere else. It's about choosing to illuminate the tools, not the monsters. Let me tell you about a man named David. David had a crippling fear of public speaking, but his career in marketing demanded he present at major conferences. For months, he prepared for a huge pitch in front of potential investors. He practiced, he rehearsed, he knew his material cold. But the moment he stepped on stage, the spotlight in his own mind swiveled away from his preparation and locked onto the sea of blank faces. He saw a man in the third row yawn. He saw a woman check her phone. The spotlight zeroed in. Asterisk, they're bored. I'm failing. They think I'm an idiot. Asterisk, that's all he could see. His mind went blank. He started to stammer, lost his place, and ended the presentation 10 minutes early in a haze of shame. For the next week, David was trapped in a loop. The spotlight in his mind was stuck, replaying that yawn, that phone, the feeling of his heart pounding in his ears. He focused on the failure, so the feeling of failure expanded until it consumed him. He felt like a fraud. He considered quitting his job. The monster of failure, fully illuminated, was terrifying. Then, his mentor told him something that changed everything. She said, "David, the event is over. You can't change it. But right now, you are choosing to attend that funeral every single day. The failure happened once, but you're making it happen 1,000 times in your head. Where else could you point your light?" So, David tried an experiment. He sat down and forced himself intentionally to move the spotlight. Instead of focusing on the yawn, he asked, "What is one thing I could learn from this?" He grabbed a notepad. The spotlight moved from the memory of failure to the blank page. A new object was illuminated. He wrote, "Number 1, the opening was too slow. It didn't grab them." Then he asked another question. "What could I do to make my next opening better?" The spotlight moved again, now searching the room of his mind for tools. He remembered a book he'd read on storytelling. He recalled a famous TED Talk with a killer opening. He wrote down 3 different ideas for a powerful start to a presentation. He wasn't pretending the failure didn't happen. It was still there in the dark. But it was no longer the star of the show. He was pointing his attention, his energy, his focus on the solution, on the tools, on the path forward. And here's the magic. When he focused on the failure, he felt shame, anxiety, and despair. Those emotions are paralyzing. But when he focused on the lesson, on the solution, he started to feel something else. A flicker of curiosity, a hint of control, maybe even a little bit of excitement. Those emotions are fuel. This is not a one-time fix. It's a practice. It's a mental push-up. The world will constantly try to grab that spotlight from you. A negative news headline, an unexpected bill, a critical email. They all scream for your attention. Your old habits will try to drag the beam back to your insecurities and past mistakes. Your job is to become the disciplined operator of your own mind. Here is the most practical, powerful way to start doing this today. I call it the acknowledge, pivot, act method. First, acknowledge. The moment you feel that familiar spiral of anxiety, anger, or despair, just notice where your spotlight is pointing. Don't judge yourself. Don't try to fight it. Just calmly say to yourself, okay, I see what's happening. I'm focusing on how I embarrassed myself in that meeting. You simply acknowledge it, like noticing a cloud in the sky. This simple act of observation separates you from the emotion. You are not the anger. You are the one noticing the anger. Second, pivot. This is where you consciously grab the handle of the spotlight. You do this by asking a better question. Your brain is a supercomputer designed to find answers to whatever questions you ask it. If you ask, "Why am I such a failure?" it will dutifully search its entire database and present you with a mountain of evidence to prove you right. It's a terrible question. Instead, you pivot by asking a useful question. A question that points the spotlight toward a solution. Questions like, what is one thing I have control over in this situation? What is the first tiny step I can take to move forward? Or my personal favorite, what would the person I want to become do right now? The quality of your life is largely determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself on a consistent basis. A better question forces your brain to stop illuminating the problem and start searching for the tools. Third, act. This is the crucial final step. You must take immediate physical action on the answer to your new question, no matter how small. If your question was, what's one tiny step I can take? And the answer is send that one email, then you get up and send the email. Right now. If the answer is go for a 5-minute walk to clear my head, you put on your shoes and walk out the door. The action is what locks the new focus in place. It breaks the spell of passive rumination and proves to your brain that you are in control. You are no longer just a victim of your circumstances, helplessly watching a horror movie in your own mind. You are the director changing the scene. Acknowledge, pivot, act. This is the fundamental practice of mental resilience. It's not about having a perfect mind that never has negative thoughts. It's about building the muscle to redirect your focus over and over again. Every time you do it, the muscle gets stronger. Every time you choose to illuminate the path forward instead of the mistake behind you, you are literally rewiring your brain for strength, for optimism, for power. But controlling your focus is just the first step. Because where you point that spotlight determines the story you tell yourself about your life. And that story, that narrative, can either be a prison or a rocket ship. In the next part, we're going to talk about how to become the author of a story that makes you unstoppable. So let's talk about that pen in your hand, the one that writes the story of your life. Most of us don't even realize we're holding it. We think the story is just happening to us. We think we're just characters in a movie that someone else is directing. But the most resilient people on earth, the ones who seem to bend but never break, they understand a fundamental truth. They are not just the main character. They are the author, the director, and the editor all rolled into one. Imagine two people, both laid off from the same job. It's a brutal, unexpected blow. The first person, let's call him Alex, immediately starts writing a tragedy. The story he tells himself goes like this. I knew it. I'm not good enough. They saw right through me. I'll never find another job this good. My career is over. This is a disaster. Every thought is a nail in the coffin of his own confidence. The spotlight of his attention is fixed on loss, on failure, on a bleak and terrifying future. His story is a prison, and he's locking the door from the inside. Now, consider the second person, let's call her Maya. She gets the same news. The shock is the same. The fear is the same. But the story she begins to write is fundamentally different. It's not a fairy tale. It's a comeback story. Her internal narrative sounds more like this. Wow, this hurts. I did not see this coming, and it's okay to be angry and scared right now. But this is not the end of my story. This is an unexpected plot twist. What did I learn from that job? What skills can I take with me? This is a chance to find a role that's an even better fit. A company that truly values what I bring. This is not a setback. It's a setup for something new. Notice, Maya isn't denying the reality of the situation. She isn't pretending it doesn't sting. That's not resilience. That's delusion. Resilience is acknowledging the difficulty, feeling the pain, and then consciously choosing to write a story of agency and opportunity, not one of victimhood and despair. Alex sees a dead end. Maya sees a detour. Same event, two radically different stories. And those stories will lead to two radically different outcomes. So how do we become Maya? How do we learn to pick up the pen and consciously write a more powerful narrative for ourselves? Especially when life punches us in the gut. It starts by understanding that every story has three core components: the protagonist, the conflict, and the plot. To change your story, you have to change how you define all three. First, let's talk about the protagonist. That's you. Who are you in your own story? For many of us, our default setting is to cast ourselves as the victim. The victim is someone to whom things happen. They are passive, powerless. The world is a big, scary place, and they're just trying to survive it. When you cast yourself as the victim, your story is always about what others have done to you, what life has thrown at you. My boss is a jerk, that's why I'm unhappy. The economy is bad, that's why I'm broke. My partner doesn't understand me, that's why the relationship is failing. There's no power in that story. The resilient author casts themselves as the hero. Not a superhero who is flawless and invincible, but a classic hero. The hero of every great story is flawed. They get knocked down. They face obstacles that seem insurmountable. But the defining characteristic of the hero is that they act. They make choices. They take responsibility. They are the primary causal force in their own life. The hero's story isn't about what happens to them. It's about what they do about it. The language shifts from, I can't believe this happened to me, to, okay, this happened. Now what? It's the single most important casting decision you'll ever make. Second, let's look at the conflict. Every story needs conflict and every life has it. Challenges, setbacks, failures, betrayals. You can't write a story without them. The question is, how do you frame them? A victim sees conflict as a punishment, a roadblock, a sign that they should give up. It's evidence that the world is against them. Of course I hit traffic, the universe just doesn't want me to succeed. The hero, the resilient author, frames conflict differently. Conflict is not a punishment. It's a test. It's a teacher. It's the very thing that forges the hero's strength. Resilient people don't necessarily seek out adversity, but when it arrives, they see it as an opportunity for growth. They ask different questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of, this is a problem, they say, this is a puzzle. It reframes the entire experience from a passive suffering to an active challenge. That obstacle in your path isn't a wall. It's a whetstone there to sharpen you. And third, there's the plot. This is the trajectory of your story. Where is it all going? The victim's plot is a tragedy or a drama, spiraling downwards. The future is a source of anxiety, a dark room full of things that could go wrong. They are always bracing for the next bad thing to happen, and in doing so, they often create a self-fulfilling prophecy. The resilient author writes a plot of redemption, of growth, of a comeback. They maintain what we call rational optimism. They don't believe the future will be perfect, but they believe in their ability to handle whatever it throws at them. They believe their best days are ahead of them, not because of luck, but because they are constantly learning, growing, and building. They are writing themselves towards a better future, one decision at a time. Their story has a purpose. So, how do we do this in practice? It sounds great in theory, but what about at 3 a.m. when you're staring at the ceiling, and the negative story is playing on a loop in your head? Here's a simple 3-step reauthoring process. Step 1 is to catch the narrative. You have to become a detective of your own thoughts. When you feel that wave of anger, anxiety, or despair, pause and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Give it a name. Ah, there it is. The I'm not good enough story. Or the world is against me story. Just naming it, observing it without judgment, creates a tiny bit of space between you and the story. You are not the story. You are the one who is aware of the story. Step 2 is to challenge the narrator. That voice in your head that's telling you the tragic story? It's a very convincing, but often very unreliable, narrator. You have to cross-examine it like a lawyer. Ask it questions. Is this story 100% true? Is it a fact that I'll never succeed? Or is that just a feeling? Are there any other ways to look at this situation? What would the person I admire most say about this story? What is one piece of evidence that contradicts this narrative? The goal isn't to defeat the narrator, but to introduce reasonable doubt, to poke holes in its grim certainty. Step 3 is to write a new draft. You're not trying to write a fantasy. You're writing a better, more empowering, more useful story. It has to be believable to you. So, you start with the truth of the situation and add a layer of agency and optimism. The old story was, I failed that test, I'm just stupid. The new draft is, I didn't get the score I wanted on that test, which is frustrating. It shows me I need to change my study methods. This isn't a reflection of my intelligence. It's feedback on my strategy. I will use this feedback to do better next time. See the difference? One is a dead end. The other is a roadmap. This is your new job. To be the relentless editor of your own inner monologue. To catch the disempowering stories, challenge their validity, and deliberately write a new draft. A draft where you are the hero, not the victim. A draft where challenges are opportunities for growth, not punishments. A draft where the plot is a comeback story, not a tragedy. The words you use are the building blocks of your reality. The story you tell yourself isn't just a story. It dictates your emotions, drives your actions, and ultimately, creates your results. You are holding the pen right now. The page is blank, and you have the power to write the next sentence. But a story is just words on a page until you live it. In the next part, we're going to forge the tools you need to turn your new narrative from fiction into fact. Starting with the most powerful and misunderstood tool of all, your focus. Your focus is not a spotlight. That's the first thing you need to understand. We think of it as this beam we can just point at will, illuminating whatever we choose. But that's a fantasy. In reality, your focus is a garden. And for most of us, it's a garden that's been left untended for years. It's overgrown with the weeds of distraction, anxiety, and other people's priorities. Thorny vines of past regret snake around the wilting flowers of your present moment, and the bitter roots of future fears are choking out any chance for new growth. Every day, a war is waged for control of this garden. Your phone buzzes, a weed is planted, an angry comment on social media, another weed, a news headline designed to make you panic, a whole patch of weeds. Our brains are biologically wired to help this invasion. It's called the negativity bias. For our ancestors, the person who obsessed over the rustle in the bushes was more likely to survive than the person admiring the sunset. Your brain is not designed for your happiness. It's designed for your survival. It will always, by default, water the weeds of worry and fear because it thinks that's what's keeping you safe. So when we talk about forging the tool of focus, we're not talking about a magic spotlight. We're talking about becoming a gardener. It means learning to get your hands dirty. It means learning what to cultivate, what to prune, and what to pull out by the root. It's a deliberate, conscious, and sometimes difficult act, but it is the single most important skill for building a resilient mind. Let me tell you a story about two people. We'll call them Maria and David. They worked at the same company in the same department for 5 years. They were both good at their jobs. One Tuesday morning, they were both called into separate meetings and laid off. The exact same event. The exact same thunderclap that shattered their reality. David went home in a daze. He immediately started cultivating the weeds. His focus latched onto the injustice of it all. After everything I gave them, he thought, the thought loop watering itself. He scrolled through LinkedIn, not to network, but to see his former colleagues still employed, feeding his sense of bitterness. His focus was a magnifying glass held over his wound. He replayed the layoff meeting 100 times, dissecting every word, every glance. He imagined worst-case scenarios. Losing his apartment, never finding another job, becoming a failure. His world, which had once been filled with possibilities, shrank to the size of his fear. Day after day, he tended his garden of grievances, and it grew wild and suffocating. Maria went home and felt the exact same shock, the same sting of betrayal, the same cold dread. She allowed herself to feel it. She didn't pretend it didn't hurt. But after the initial storm passed, she picked up a trowel. She asked herself a different question. Not why did this happen to me? But what can I do now? Her focus shifted. It was a conscious, difficult pivot. She turned her attention away from the closed door behind her and toward the open, albeit terrifying, path ahead. She updated her resume that afternoon. The next day, she made a list of 10 companies she'd always admired. The day after that, she reached out to 3 former colleagues for coffee, not to complain, but to ask about their experiences and seek advice. She focused on the small, controllable actions. Each tiny step was a seed she planted in her garden. Some didn't sprout. Some emails went unanswered. Some networking calls led nowhere. But she kept weeding the thoughts of "this is hopeless" and watering the seeds of "what's next." Her world, which had felt like it was collapsing, slowly began to expand again. David and Maria faced the same storm. The difference wasn't the storm. It was where they chose to point their compass. David focused on the wind and the waves. Maria focused on the rudder and the sails. This is the essence of attentional control. So how do you become the gardener? How do you take control of the rudder? It starts with a simple but profound framework. Imagine 3 concentric circles. In the very center is your circle of control. In the middle is your circle of influence. And on the vast outside is your circle of concern. The circle of control is where you have direct 100% authority. This includes your actions, your effort, your words, your choices. It's where Maria lived. She couldn't control being laid off, but she could control updating her resume. She could control sending that email. She could control her attitude in a networking meeting. Resilient people spend the vast majority of their time and energy, their focus, playing in this circle. This is their garden. The next ring out is the circle of influence. These are the things you don't control directly, but you can have an impact on. The outcome of a job interview, the opinion a colleague has of you, the mood of your spouse. You can influence these things through your actions, by preparing well, by being kind, by communicating clearly, but you can't control them. You can plant the seeds, but you can't force the sun to shine. It's important to visit this circle, but you can't live here. And then there's the vast, chaotic outer ring. The circle of concern. This is where David lived. This circle contains everything that you worry about, but have zero control or influence over. The economy. What a recruiter really thought of his application. The fact that he was laid off in the first place. The past. Most of the future. Pouring your focus here is like trying to water a garden with a thimble in the middle of the Sahara Desert. It is a complete and total waste of your most precious resource, your attention. The first practical step to becoming the gardener is to take inventory. When you feel that spike of anxiety or anger, ask yourself, what am I focusing on right now, and which circle is it in? If it's in the circle of concern or you're obsessing over an outcome in the circle of influence, you are wasting your energy. The goal is to consciously drag your focus, kicking and screaming if you have to, back into the tiny, powerful circle of control. Ask yourself the question Maria asked, what can I do right now? Even if the answer is as small as take 3 deep breaths or go for a walk, that is an action. That is control. That is you tending your garden. This isn't about pretending the other circles don't exist. It's not toxic positivity. You don't ignore the hurricane in your circle of concern. You acknowledge it. You say, yes, there is a hurricane. Then you turn your full attention to boarding up the windows in your circle of control. You acknowledge the reality of the situation without letting your focus be consumed by the parts you cannot change. The act of yanking your attention back is a muscle. The first few times you do it, it will feel impossible. Your brain, addicted to the drama of the circle of concern, will fight you. It will scream, but what if? And you have to worry about this. Your job is to notice that pull, to acknowledge it without judgment, and to gently, firmly guide your focus back to what you can do. Back to your hands on the keyboard. Back to your feet on the pavement. Back to your breath in your lungs. You've started to rewrite your story. Now you're learning to aim the flashlight of your attention, to choose what parts of that story you illuminate and what parts you leave in the shadows. You're learning to be the gardener, not the weed. But what happens when the light lands on something genuinely monstrous? What do you do when the problem isn't an external event, but an internal one? What happens when the weed you need to pull is your own thought? When the voice telling you you're not good enough, that you're a failure, that it's all hopeless is your own. You can't put a thought in the circle of concern. Feels like it's in the very center of your circle of control. In the next part, we're going to learn how to confront those thoughts, how to challenge them, and how to disarm them one by one. So let's talk about that internal battlefield. That space between your ears where the most brutal fights happen. It's where a tiny negative thought can grow into a monster that paralyzes you. We call these things automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs. And just like real ants, they're small, they seem to come from nowhere. And if you let them, they can infest everything. The first step in dealing with these ANTs isn't to crush them with positivity. That's like trying to fight a fire with a water pistol full of perfume. It's ineffective and, frankly, a little insulting to your own intelligence. Your brain knows when you're lying to it. If you're feeling terrified about a presentation and you just tell yourself, I'm the greatest speaker in the world, your brain will immediately call you out on it. It'll say, no, you're not. Remember that time in 10th grade you forgot your lines? And now you're not only anxious, you're also in an argument with yourself. The real first step is to become a detective, a thought detective. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to catch these thoughts in the act, put them under a magnifying glass, and interrogate them until they confess their lies. We're going to use a simple 3-step framework for this interrogation. Catch it, check it, and change it. Let's start with catch it. This is the mindfulness piece of the puzzle. You have to become aware of the thoughts as they pop into your head. Most of us just let these ANTs crawl all over our brain without even noticing. A thought like, I'm going to mess this up, appears, and we just accept it as fact. We merge with it. It becomes, I am a person who is going to mess this up. To catch it, you have to create a little bit of space between you, the observer, and the thought. Imagine you're sitting by a river, and your thoughts are leaves floating by. You don't have to jump in the river and grab every leaf. You can just sit on the bank and watch them go. When a negative one comes along, a leaf that says you're not good enough, you don't fight it. You just notice it. You say to yourself, ah, there it is. The I'm not good enough thought. You label it. By labeling it, you externalize it. It's not you. It's a thought, an event happening in your mind. That simple act of noticing and labeling is the catch. It stops the thought from being an undisputed fact and turns it into an object of curiosity. Now for the second step, the interrogation. Check it. This is where you become a lawyer cross-examining a witness. This ANT has just made a claim about you in the court of your mind. Your job is to challenge that claim. Is it really true? Is it 100% unequivocally factually true? Let's take that thought. I'm going to mess this up. Okay, let's put it on the stand. First question. Where is the evidence? What concrete, factual evidence do you have that you are definitely going to mess this up? Your feelings don't count as evidence. Your anxiety is a feeling, not a fact. Have you messed up every single thing you've ever done in your entire life? Unlikely. Have you prepared for this thing you're about to do? Probably. So the evidence for "I will definitely mess this up" is actually pretty shaky. Second question. Is there an alternative explanation or perspective? Could it be that you're just nervous because this is important to you? Could it be that you're feeling pressure, but that pressure is just a sign that you care? Could it be that even if you make a small mistake, it won't be a total disaster? The answer to all of these is almost certainly yes. Third question, and this is the killer question. What is the effect of believing this thought? When you believe the thought, "I'm going to mess this up," how does it make you feel? Anxious, tense, defeated. How does it make you behave? You might avoid preparing. Your body language might become closed off. You might speak with less confidence. In other words, believing the thought actually makes the negative outcome more likely. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. This thought is not your friend. It's not trying to protect you. It's actively sabotaging you. Let's run another one through the process. The classic ANT of social anxiety. Everyone is looking at me and thinking I'm an idiot. Okay, let's catch it. There's the "everyone thinks I'm an idiot" thought. Now let's check it. Evidence? Can you read minds? Are you absolutely certain that every single person in this room has stopped their own internal monologue about their own insecurities, their dinner plans, their weird rash, just to focus all their mental energy on judging you? It's not just unlikely, it's physically impossible. Alternative perspective. The more realistic perspective is that most people are wrapped up in their own worlds. The person you think is staring at you might just be zoned out in your general direction. The person who didn't laugh at your joke might not have heard it. What's the effect of believing this thought? It makes you feel small, insecure, and self-conscious. It makes you act awkwardly. It makes you want to leave. Again, the thought is the problem, not you. This check-it phase is profoundly important. You are applying logic and reason to an emotional and irrational part of your brain. You are turning the light on to see that the monster in the corner is just a pile of laundry. Which brings us to the final step. Change it. This is not about flipping a negative into a wild, unbelievable positive. It's about replacing a distorted, biased thought with a balanced and realistic one. You've proven the original thought is a liar, so now you write a more truthful statement to replace it. So, "I'm going to mess this up" doesn't become, "I'm going to be perfect and amazing." It becomes something more like, "I'm nervous because this is important, but I've prepared for it. I'm capable of doing a good job, and even if I make a mistake, I can handle it." Can you feel the difference? That statement is believable. It acknowledges the feeling of nervousness, but focuses on the reality of your preparation and your capability. It's not a lie. It's a more complete truth. Let's go back to the social anxiety ANT. Everyone is looking at me and thinking I'm an idiot becomes, "I feel anxious right now and it's making me self-conscious. Most people probably aren't paying much attention to me, and even if they are, I can't control what they think. I'm just going to focus on having a conversation with the person in front of me." This new thought is empowering. It takes the focus off the imagined judgment of others and puts it back on what you can control: your own actions. Catch it, check it, change it. This is the fundamental skill of cognitive restructuring. It's a workout for your brain. The first few times you do it, it will feel clunky and artificial. You'll be arguing with a thought and it will feel silly. But just like lifting weights, the more you do it, the stronger you get. You are literally forging new neural pathways in your brain. Every time you catch an ANT, challenge its validity, and replace it with a more balanced thought, you are weakening the old, automatic, negative pathway and strengthening a new, more resilient one. Over time, your brain's default response will start to change. The balanced thoughts will start to become the automatic ones. This isn't a one-and-done fix. It's a practice. It's a new way of relating to your own mind. You stop being a passive victim of your thoughts and become an active, engaged participant in your own mental landscape. You are taking the steering wheel back from the anxious part of your brain that's been driving you into ditches. But this raises a deeper question. These ANTs, these automatic negative thoughts, they don't just come from nowhere. They are the symptoms, not the disease. They are the weeds poking up through the soil. And while this technique of catch it, check it, change it is incredibly powerful for pulling those weeds one by one, if we truly want to build lasting resilience, we have to look at the soil itself. we have to look at the deep underlying core beliefs that are spawning these thoughts in the first place. And these core beliefs are the very bedrock of our mental landscape. Think of it like this. If a negative thought is a weed, a core belief is the pH level of the soil. You can spend all day pulling weeds, but if the soil is fundamentally toxic, new weeds will just keep sprouting faster than you can pull them. To truly cultivate a resilient mind, a garden that can withstand storms, we have to stop just yanking at the surface and start amending the soil itself. So what are these core beliefs? Simply put, they are the deeply held fundamental assumptions we have about ourselves, about other people, and about the world. They are the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. These aren't fleeting thoughts like, "I look tired today." These are the foundational truths we operate from, often without even realizing it. Beliefs like, "I am not good enough," or "The world is a dangerous place," or "I am unlovable." These beliefs don't just appear out of nowhere. They are forged in the fire of our experiences, usually in our formative years. A child who is consistently criticized by a parent might develop the core belief, "I am defective." A teenager who is bullied might internalize the belief, "I don't belong." Someone who experiences a significant failure might adopt the belief, "I am incapable." And here's the insidious part. Once a core belief is set, it acts like a pair of glasses, colors everything we see. Our brain, in its effort to be efficient, starts looking for evidence to confirm what it already believes to be true. This is confirmation bias on a deeply personal level. If your core belief is, "I am unlovable," you won't interpret a friend not texting you back as, "They're probably busy." You'll interpret it as, "See? Proof. They don't care about me. I knew it." If your core belief is, "I'm incompetent," you'll focus on the one small mistake you made in a presentation, completely ignoring the 99% that went perfectly. The belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It filters reality, presenting you with a distorted version of the world that constantly reinforces your deepest fears. You're not just pulling weeds anymore. You're living in a garden that is chemically engineered to only grow weeds. So, the million-dollar question is, how do we change the soil? How do we excavate these deeply buried beliefs and replace them with something that nourishes us instead of poisons us? The first step is awareness. You cannot change a belief you don't know you have. Most of these run on autopilot deep in our subconscious. We have to become detectives of our own minds. And there's a powerful technique for this, often called the downward arrow. It's simple but profound. The next time you have a strong, negative emotional reaction to something, grab a piece of paper. At the top, write down the automatic thought that caused the feeling. Let's say you made a mistake at work and your thought is, "I can't believe I messed that up." Now you ask yourself a series of questions, digging deeper each time. Underneath, "I can't believe I messed that up," ask, "And if that's true, what does that mean about me?" Maybe the answer is, "It means my boss will be angry with me." Okay, dig again. "And if my boss is angry with me, what does that mean?" "It means I might get a bad performance review." Keep going. "And if I get a bad performance review, what does that mean?" "It means I could lose my job." Deeper. "And if I lose my job, what would that mean about me?" "It would mean I'm a failure." And there it is. You see how we went from a simple mistake to a devastating conclusion about our fundamental identity? I am a failure. That is the core belief. That is the toxic soil. The mistake at work was just the trigger, the seed that landed in that soil and instantly sprouted into a weed of anxiety and self-criticism. Do this enough times with different triggers, and you'll start to see the same core belief showing up again and again. Once you've identified the belief, the second step is to challenge it. You have to take it from being an unquestioned truth and downgrade it to a simple hypothesis, a theory to be tested. You have to put your core belief on trial. Imagine a courtroom in your mind. The core belief, let's stick with "I am a failure," is in the defendant's box. You are not just the judge. You are also the prosecutor and the defense attorney. This is critical. You have to play both sides. First, as the prosecutor, you make the case for the belief. Let your inner critic run wild. List every piece of evidence you can think of that supports the idea that you are a failure. The time you got rejected. The project that didn't work out. The test you failed in high school. Every single piece of proof. Write it all down. This part is easy because your brain has been doing it for years. But then comes the hard part. The part that changes everything. You have to switch roles. You are now the defense attorney. And your job is to argue passionately and relentlessly for the opposite. Your job is to find every single piece of evidence, no matter how small, that contradicts the belief that you are a failure. Did you graduate from school? That's evidence. Do you have a friend who relies on you? Evidence. Did you learn how to cook a new meal? Evidence. Did you get out of bed this morning even when it was hard? That's evidence of strength, not failure. You have to be meticulous. You have to search for the data your brain has been conveniently ignoring for decades. List your accomplishments, your skills, the times you were kind, the times you tried something new even when you were scared, the people whose lives are better for having you in them. When you're done, you, the judge, look at both lists. You look at the evidence for I am a failure, and you look at the evidence against it. And what you will almost certainly find is that the statement I am a failure is, at best, a gross oversimplification. It's a lie. It's a distorted story based on cherry-picked data. The evidence for the defense is often overwhelming, you just haven't been willing to look at it. This process does something remarkable. It creates doubt. It cracks the foundation of the belief. It shows you in black and white that this truth you've been carrying around, this heavy anchor that has been shaping your reality, is not a fact. It's just a thought. Powerful one, yes. A long-held one, absolutely. But it is not the unbreakable law of the universe you thought it was. You begin to amend the soil. By consciously seeking out and focusing on the evidence that contradicts your negative core beliefs, you start to neutralize the toxicity. You're not just pulling weeds anymore. You're fundamentally changing the environment they grow in. You're adding limestone to the acidic soil, enriching it with nutrients it has been starved of for years. This isn't a one-and-done fix. This is the work of a lifetime. It's a practice. But every time you catch an automatic thought, follow it down to its root, and put that belief on trial, you weaken its hold on you. You loosen its grip. We've identified the old toxic belief. We've put it on trial and proven that it does not hold up under scrutiny. We've created a crack in its foundation. But a crack is not enough. An old abandoned road is still a road. To truly change the landscape of our mind, we can't just stop using the old path. We have to build a new one, a superhighway. So how do we consciously design and install a new empowering belief? How do we turn a fragile idea like, I am capable and resilient, from a whisper into an unshakable truth? That is how we build the foundation for a truly unbreakable mind. Let's put on our hard hats. We're not just wishing for a stronger house. We are becoming the architects and the general contractors of our own minds. The process of installing a new, empowering belief isn't mystical. It's a deliberate, four-step construction project. And the first step is always demolition. Step 1. You have to clearly identify the limiting belief you want to replace. Before you can build a skyscraper, you have to clear the lot. You have to look at the crumbling shack of the old belief, understand its faulty foundation, and label it for what it is, obsolete. This requires radical honesty. Don't just say, I have low self-esteem. Get specific. What is the exact belief? Is it, I am not smart enough to succeed in my career? Is it, I'm unlovable because of my past mistakes? Or maybe, I must be perfect in everything I do, or I am a failure. Write it down. Look at it. See it not as a truth, but as a piece of old faulty programming that's been running in the background, consuming your mental RAM. Acknowledge the role it played. Perhaps it was a misguided attempt to keep you safe, to stop you from taking risks. Thank it for its service, and then make the conscious decision to decommission it. Step 2. Design the new belief. This is the architectural phase. Your new belief, the blueprint for your new mental structure, needs to be crafted with precision. It cannot be a vague wish. It has to be a statement of what you are building, and it must be framed in a way your brain can accept. There are 3 critical rules for an effective blueprint. First, it must be in the present tense. Not, I will be confident, but, I am becoming more confident every day. The brain operates in the now. Will be is a destination that's always on the horizon. Am or am becoming is a process that's happening right now. Second, it must be positive. Instead of, I will not let anxiety control me, which still centers the word anxiety, reframe it as, I am in control of my responses and I choose to be calm. You want to build a house of calm, not a house of not anxiety. Third, and this is crucial, it has to be believable. If you're terrified of public speaking and your new belief is, I am the world's greatest orator, your internal system will immediately reject it as a lie. The gap is too wide. You have to build a bridge. A more believable and effective belief would be, I am a capable speaker who is learning and improving with every opportunity. Or, I have valuable ideas to share, and I am learning to share them with confidence. This gives your brain a credible path to follow. So, you've identified the old belief and you've designed the new believable present tense positive blueprint. Now comes the most important part, the construction itself. Step 3 is installation through repetition and evidence. This is where we pour the concrete and lay the bricks day after day. First, repetition. This is the brute force method of carving a new neural pathway. You are literally forcing your brain to acknowledge a new thought pattern over and over again until it starts to become familiar. This is the science behind affirmations, but they only work if done correctly. Simply repeating "I am confident" while feeling like a fraud is useless. The key is to consciously and deliberately repeat your new, carefully crafted belief multiple times a day. Write it on a sticky note and put it on your bathroom mirror. Make it the wallpaper on your phone. Set an alarm to read it aloud 3 times a day. In the beginning, this will feel awkward. It will feel like a lie. Your old belief system, that superhighway of negativity, will scream at you that you're an imposter. That's its job. It's trying to maintain the status quo. Your job is to ignore the screaming and just keep laying the bricks. You are not trying to convince yourself in these moments. You are simply creating a new signal and sending it again and again and again. But repetition alone is slow. To accelerate the process, you need the second part of step 3, evidence gathering. This is the master key to belief change. Your brain has a feature called the reticular activating system, which acts like a filter for the world. Points out what it thinks is important. Right now, if your dominant belief is, "I'm not good enough," your brain is constantly scanning your environment for evidence to prove that belief true. It will ignore 10 compliments and laser focus on one piece of criticism. It's a confirmation bias machine. We need to hijack that machine. You are going to become a detective, and your sole mission is to find evidence that supports your new belief. Here's the exercise. Get a notebook, the evidence journal, and every single night, your only task is to write down just one piece of evidence from your day that proves your new belief is true. If your new belief is "I am disciplined and consistent," your evidence could be as small as "I made my bed this morning," or "I drank a glass of water instead of soda." If your belief is "I am a kind and patient person," your evidence might be "I listened to a coworker vent without interrupting." These pieces of evidence don't have to be monumental. In fact, it's better if they're small, because small means they happen every day. You are training your brain's powerful search engine to stop searching for proof of your inadequacy and start searching for proof of your competence. You are deliberately stacking the deck in your own favor. This brings us to the final and most powerful step. Step 4. Emotional reinforcement. Beliefs aren't just logical statements stored in your brain. They are thoughts fused with feelings, stored in your body. To truly make a new belief stick, you have to anchor it with emotion. Thought is a spark. A thought paired with an emotion is a fire. It's the difference between looking at a blueprint and living in a home with the lights on and warmth coming from the fireplace. So, when you find your piece of evidence for your journal, don't just write it down and close the book. This is where the magic happens. After you write it down, "I spoke up in the meeting today even though I was nervous." I want you to close your eyes for just 60 seconds. Replay that moment in your mind. And don't just see it, feel it. Feel the surge of pride. Feel the sense of accomplishment. Feel the quiet confidence that comes from facing a fear. Amplify that feeling. Let it wash over you. What you are doing is linking the new neural pathway you're building with a positive emotional reward. You're telling your nervous system, This is what we want more of. This feels good. This keeps us safe. This helps us grow. This is how true change happens. It's a feedback loop. You repeat the new belief. You actively hunt for evidence to support it. You celebrate that evidence with genuine positive emotion. The positive emotion makes you more likely to notice more evidence tomorrow. Noticing more evidence makes the belief feel more real. As it feels more real, repeating it feels less like a lie and more like the truth. You lay one brick of evidence. You feel the pride. You lay another. You feel the security. Over time, these individual bricks of evidence and mortars of emotion coalesce. They form an unshakable wall, a fortress of self-belief that replaces the old, crumbling shack. This isn't about faking it till you make it. This is about building it till you become it. We've now laid out the architectural plans and the construction methods for installing powerful, resilient beliefs. But even the strongest fortress can be tested. We've built the walls, but we haven't tested them against a siege. What happens when life doesn't just throw a stone but a cannonball? What happens when a sudden job loss, a devastating diagnosis, or a profound heartbreak threatens to demolish everything you've just painstakingly built? How do you stress test your resilience before the storm arrives? And what is the one single tool that can act as your emergency generator when all the lights go out? The answer lies in a principle understood by every elite military operator, every championship athlete, and every master craftsman. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. You stress test your resilience not by waiting for the hurricane, but by building and weathering your own controlled storms. This is the practice of voluntary hardship. It's the deliberate choice to step out of your comfort zone, not for a trophy or for applause, but for the sole purpose of forging a stronger mind. Think of it like a blacksmith forging a blade. The steel isn't strengthened by sitting on a shelf. It's plunged into the fire, hammered, and quenched in cold water over and over. Each cycle of stress and recovery makes it harder, sharper, and less likely to shatter under pressure. Your mind is that blade. Your comfort zone is the shelf. Voluntary hardship is the fire and the hammer. So how do you do this? You start small. You integrate microdoses of controlled adversity into your daily life. It's not about climbing Mount Everest tomorrow. It's about taking the stairs instead of the elevator every single time. It's about taking a cold shower for the last 30 seconds in the morning. The point isn't the temperature of the water. The point is the moment your brain screams, and oh, that's uncomfortable. And you calmly do it anyway. You are teaching the most primal part of your brain that you are in charge, not your fleeting desire for comfort. You expand this into other areas. You commit to a workout program that truly pushes you, the kind where you have to argue with yourself to get through the last set. You sign up for a public speaking course, even if the thought makes your stomach churn. You pick up that difficult book you've been avoiding and commit to reading 10 pages a day. You have that difficult but necessary conversation you've been putting off. Each of these acts is a controlled demolition of your own self-imposed limits. Each one is a deposit into your resilience bank account. You are intentionally building a library of evidence, a catalog of past victories over discomfort, that your brain can draw upon when a real crisis hits. When life punches you in the mouth, you won't be tasting that shock for the first time. You'll have a memory, a deep cellular knowledge that you have faced down your own resistance before and won. This practice changes your relationship with hardship itself. You begin to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to sharpen your blade. You build a quiet confidence, not the loud, arrogant kind, but the calm, centered assurance of someone who knows they can handle what's coming because they've been training for it all along. This is how you stress test your system. You don't wait for the storm to see if the walls will hold. You go outside on a windy day and push on them yourself. But what happens when the real storm hits? Not a windy day, but the Category 5 hurricane. The kind of life-altering event that shatters your foundations and plunges everything into darkness. The kind of pain, the loss of a loved one, a devastating betrayal, a catastrophic failure, that makes all your training feel like child's play. In that moment when your strength is gone, your discipline is exhausted, and your meticulously built habits fail you, what is left? This is where we find the emergency generator, the one single tool that can provide light in the absolute darkest of nights. It is not a technique. It is not a mantra. It is your unbreakable why. Your unbreakable why is the single core reason you have to keep going. It is the most fundamental, non-negotiable truth at the center of your being. It's the purpose that transcends your own pain, your own comfort, your own exhaustion. For the soldier pinned down by enemy fire, it's the thought of the brother to his left and right. For the entrepreneur on the verge of bankruptcy, it might be the promise she made to her parents. For the single mother working 3 jobs, it is the face of her sleeping child. Your why is the anchor that holds when the entire ship is being torn apart. All the other ropes, your habits, your routines, your positive self-talk, they might snap under that kind of strain. But the anchor holds, because it's not attached to something flimsy like your mood or your motivation. It's attached to the bedrock of your soul. So what is yours? This is the most important work you will ever do. And you must do it now before the lights go out. You have to dig for it. It's not on the surface. Ask yourself, for what or for whom would I walk through fire? What cause is so important to me that I would endure any hardship to serve it? What promise have I made to myself or to someone else that I would rather die than break? What is the one thing that, if I lost it, would make all my suffering meaningless? Your answer might be a person. It might be a principle like justice or truth. It might be a legacy you want to leave. It might be a deep spiritual conviction. Whatever it is, you must find it, articulate it, and write it down. You must know it so completely that you can call upon it in an instant. When the diagnosis comes back and the floor falls out from under you, your why is what helps you take the next breath. When the heartbreak is so complete that you feel physically hollowed out, your why is what gets you out of bed. It doesn't make the pain disappear. Don't misunderstand this. The generator doesn't stop the storm. It just gives you enough light to see the path to the next step. And then the next. And then the one after that. That is the ultimate expression of resilience. It's not about being invincible. It's not about being happy all the time. It is about having a reason to get up one more time when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to stay down. Over these last 10 parts, we've journeyed through the architecture of a resilient mind. We started with the foundation, understanding that stress isn't just in your head, it's in your body, and we learned how to manage it with breath and physiology. We moved to the framework, learning to reframe our thoughts, to see setbacks not as dead ends but as data, to transform our inner critic into an inner coach. We installed the wiring, building a community, a network of support that acts as our surge protector. We learned to find meaning, to turn our past scars into a source of future strength. And now today we've installed the final, most crucial pieces, the training regimen of voluntary hardship, and the emergency generator of an unbreakable why. Resilience is not a gift. It is a skill. It is a structure. And you have the blueprint. It's not about avoiding the storms of life. That is impossible. The storms will come for all of us. It is about becoming the person who is ready for them. The person who has trained in the calm so they can perform in the chaos. The person who knows in their darkest hour exactly what they are fighting for. The work is not easy, but it is the most important work you will ever do. It is the work of building an unbreakable self. So start today. Take the cold shower. Have the hard conversation. Dig deep and find your why. Build the person you're proud of. Build the person who can look into the eye of the storm and say, with a calm and quiet certainty, I am ready.